Hey, truth seekers, welcome back. Zach here, 174th post, and for that reason, I am dedicating it to Portland, Oregon. Why? Because in simple English gematria, Portland sums to 100, and Oregon sums to 74. Thus, Portland, Oregon sums to 174. A little known fact, the phrase New World Order also sums to 174. You might be surprised to know that Portland, Oregon has a World Trade Center complex of its own, not quite as big as Manhattan's, but it does have one. Anyhow, Portland, Oregon is my city of birth, and in this study of gematria, I have learned much about my city as well as myself. I happen to have been born in Portland, Oregon on the coldest day ever recorded. In the time of such recordings, the record still stands. That date was July 21st, 1983. Perhaps my destiny was to figure this out because since I was a little tot living in Portland, they've been teaching us that someday Portland's going to get hit by a very massive earthquake. And maybe the reason they always taught us that is because it's always been planned. Perhaps it's always been on a date on a calendar somewhere in some madman's collection. And if you think I'm crazy for saying that, I can't blame you honestly, but I'll show you why I think that. And it's not just what I'm going to present here. If you get on and watch my other posts and read my written blog, I have a lot of evidence to show how this kind of stuff is real. And it's right here in Portland, Oregon. The warning signs, they've been forecast for over decades. I didn't know how to read them back then, but now I do, so that's what I'm going to share. All right. So from October 15th to the 19th of 2007, there was a drill called TOPOFF 4. It was done in Portland, Oregon, Phoenix, Arizona, and Guam, a U.S. territory island. This drill and still to date, is the largest ever done. It is a drill responding to a horrible disaster. It could be environmental, it could be a nuclear blast, it could be a viral outbreak. They were essentially practicing a response to an unprecedented event. If essentially an entire urban center was wiped out, that's what this TOPOFF 4 drill was about. If you've never heard of it, do a web search for it. You can even pause right here, go read about it, come back. It's central in this. So it was done in Portland, Phoenix, and Guam. The majority of the drill was in Portland, Oregon. October, the month it was done in, is the only month with a gematria of 33. The only of the 12 months. Only October sums to 33. TOPOFF, the word TOPOFF, using the same method that we use for October, sums to 33, and I wrote it out so you could see the 666 sequence created from O and F. O is the 15th letter. 1 plus 5 becomes 6. F is the 6th letter. So we're reducing each letter to a single digit and then adding. So this drill, TOPOFF 4, it could look like 33-4 if you turn the word TOPOFF to a number, 33-4. Or if you sum it, it could just be 37. Portland sums to 37 in gematria with the smaller method, and it sums to 100 with the larger method. Should be noted that Oregon is the 33rd state, like the word TOPOFF, like the month October. It's the only state with a gematria of 74. That's important because 33 and 74 are often paired together in things. For example, the word Jesus equals 74. The word cross equals 74. Jesus was crucified at the age of 74. On the hurricane scale, called the Saffir-Simpson scale, the qualifying wind speed for a hurricane is 33 meters per second, or 74 miles per hour. On the periodic table, the 33rd element is arsenic. Arsenic's gematria sums to 33, like these words, October, TOPOFF. And its atomic weight is 74, 33, 74. These pairings are just through and through science, religion, geography. It's deep. Anyhow, Oregon's the only state that sums to 74. It's the 33rd state. The abbreviation OR is 15 plus 18. That also sums to 33. So in 1993, just outside of Portland, there was a pretty big earthquake, and it was early in the morning, and I slept through it. And I remember this earthquake through my parents, who couldn't believe that I slept through it, because they woke right up and thought it was just insane. They couldn't remember feeling an earthquake like that before. Somehow I just slept right through it. At the time, I wasn't even quite 10 years old. I was 9. But look at this name in gematria. Scots. It sums to 96, like the word Freemason. Freemason is 96. Mills, 65. A number with a numerology of 11. It was a 5.6 earthquake. Here's where it's real curious. It happened at 5:34 in the morning. So remember, TOPOFF 4 is a lot like 33-4. 5 in the morning. That means it's been 5 hours times 60 minutes. That's 300 minutes. Plus 34 more minutes is 334 minutes. 334 minutes. Remember, TOPOFF 4 is like 334. We get the same number sequence. TOPOFF 4 simulated what would happen if a major earthquake happened in a metropolitan area and just caused unprecedented damage. That could theoretically happen in Portland. So more recently, this year on April 6th, 2014, that's the 96th day of the year. April 6th. April 6th is the 96th day of the year. There was a 3.3 magnitude quake. Remember 33 in Oregon, TOPOFF, all this stuff, in Sherwood, Oregon. And what's interesting about Sherwood is it sums to 44 in gematria, just like the word earthquake, just like the word kill with simple English gematria. And what I'm telling you, truth seekers, is that these earthquakes that are reported on, they are warnings. These are warnings. They're countdowns. Another example of this is in the World Trade Center towers. The 93 World Trade Center building bombings to the September 11th, 2001 attacks was a span of 3,119 days. So think about that. 3119. Now think about the date, 9/11/2001. In numerology, 9 can stay 9. 11 can become 2 because 1 plus 1 is 2, or it can remain 11 because it's a multiple of 11. The year 2001 would be 2 plus 0 plus 0 plus 1, which equals 3. So if you reduce the date, it becomes 9/11/3. And remember, I just said that it was a span of 3,119 days between the attacks. Making matters more interesting, the buildings were first conceived and approved March 11th, 1961, 3/11, and they were destroyed on September 11th, 9/11. And remember those numbers, 3/11/9. And then the date, how it became 9/11/3. And then also how we just said the other number pairings. You see how the numbers just overlap and stack? It's the same thing with so many events in history. And that's why when you start to look at this and compile it, you can forecast what they're potentially going to do. I was worried just not long ago, that maybe November 24th was the day of a targeted earthquake for the Pacific Northwest region, and it turned out to be the day they started the Michael Brown Ferguson riot. So using these numbers, it's not an exact science, but at the same time, you can get a gist of really what they're doing and how they're plotting and planning it, and that's what I'm trying to expose. And as for Portland, Oregon, honestly, people, I don't think that's a good place to be right now. I think if you can get out of Portland, Oregon, and that region, it's a good idea. As someone who grew up in Portland and who understands Portland, I can see why that would be a target. For one, it's a beautiful region, a very desirable place to be, but it's completely locked in terms of growth potential because of how it's structured. It was built a long time ago. It hasn't really been updated, and there's nowhere to expand because of how they built the freeways and highways around it. And in a growing world, in a desirable area, I could see why they would want to recreate a city and bring a greater populace there. We have an example of this in the last decade in Dubai, the city that was built overnight. Now it's a major metropolitan area, and look at all the people flocking there. It seems like more people I know here in the United States are getting well-paying jobs over there than they are here in their own region. So my point is if they really were to do something like destroy a Portland, I know they could bring it back just as fast, and that's probably the same way they see it. And these people don't seem to regard human life. So as for destroying a city, seems like something they've already done, sadly, all over the world. But here in the United States, we haven't quite experienced it yet. Not in our lifetimes. So until next time, Truth Seekers, a few things to think about. Take care.